Canyon released the new StriveON back in May, was it, this year? But it took months before the bike reached us. So it gave me a lot of time to speculate. Canyon already has a 160mm travel fork on the Spectral Canyon On, 180mm travel fork on the Torque On. So do they really need a bike with a 170mm fork squeezed in between those two other bikes? Reading the press release, Canyon said this StriveON was more oriented towards racing. So I guess that sort of makes sense. You get a racing-oriented bike with a Bosch Performance CX motor, and according to the press release, the rear suspension of the StriveON is slightly tuned towards pedaling efficiency in the mid-stroke, so I was sort of imagining a more pedal-efficient bike, perhaps a tad harsher on the rear end. So yeah, I guess it's room for this 170mm travel front, 160mm travel rear mullet bike in the lineup. At least you get to choose the motor system you prefer. The StriveON comes in 3 versions. All of them get the carbon CFR frame, and they can be had with either 625 Wh battery or a bigger 750 Wh. The cheapest one, the StriveON CFR Underdog. It really looks decently spec'd to me, and the top of the line Canyon StriveON CFR Limited. The bike I'm testing, the Canyon StriveON CFR, that's a 6,999 euros bike, 6,700 pounds I believe. It's a very well spec'd bike. It's got the Fox 38 Performance Elite, and it's got a Fox Performance X2 shock, and you get the Shimano XT 12-speed drivetrain. For a humble guy such as me, this is all I could ever want, really. Wheels are very nice, DT Swiss HX 1700, nice and relatively lightweight, stiff, burly. 29er up front with a Maxxis Assegai 2.5-inch wide tire. It's the Max Grip version. The 27.5 at the back, it's a Maxxis Minion DHR2 in the slightly harder rubber compound Max Terra, and it's a double down casing, so slightly burlier than the Exo Plus casing on the front tire. Yeah, and the brakes are Shimano XT2. I quite like the brakes. I like the feel of the lever. This bike weighs in at 24.4 kilos without the pedals and without the supplied bottle cage. And this bike comes with a 750 Wh battery, bumping the price up to 7,200 euros. Unlike the Canyon Spectral On and the Torque On, this bike, as mentioned, gets the Bosch Performance CX motor, 85 Nm. It's of course the smart system, and this last couple of years the Bosch Performance motor has been just great. Very easy to control at low speed, technical, gnarly sections, and nice amount of power when you get the cadence up. It really inspires you to pedal harder, faster. The bike comes without a display. You only get the panel on the top of the down tube that indicates battery state of charge and the chosen assistance mode. So the cockpit is looking very clean. You got this Bosch Mini handlebar remote, which is wireless. And even though there is no display to show you live data like speed and so on, the motor system records your ride automatically. So when you get home, you can study all the details. As mentioned, this bike gets a 750 Wh battery, and it's a removable, easily detachable battery. And that's almost a tad impressive that Canyon has managed to make this huge, long 750 Wh battery detachable. It slides out through the bottom of the frame, right next to the motor, so that's sort of why the motor area looks quite chunky. You get the Bosch motor, you get room to slide out the battery in front, and you got this bash guard thing covering it all up. Also, the handlebars, the steering on the Canyon Strive, it will turn all the way around. There is no block inside, no headset, knock block headset limiting how far you can turn the handlebars. So why do I find this impressive? Many other manufacturers, when making a bike with a long 750 watt-hours battery, they attach the battery to the frame. They're making it non-detachable because that saves a bit of space for the battery mounts. Also, they tend to tilt the down tube slightly forward to make the down tube as long as possible, and this of course means the fork will hit the down tube, so they need a knock block mechanism to limit the steering. Both of these things Canyon managed to work around, to have all the steering you wanted and to have the detachable battery even in the smallest frame size. But did that come with sort of a compromise? There has been some talk, and I'm sure if you investigate into this bike, you already know there has been some talk about the battery latch, the mechanism that attaches the battery to the frame, has cracked, which can lead to the motor turning off when riding hard. Canyon decided to attach the upper battery mount directly to the frame, which is different to how many other manufacturers have implemented the battery. Most of them are using what's called the Bosch rail. It's like a long, thin metal plate with the upper battery connector attached to the top of the rail. And I think the Canyon solution, it probably saves a bit of weight, and I would sort of assume that attaching the upper battery mount directly to the frame could potentially be a more solid implementation, but it could also perhaps be more prone to misalignment. And I really don't know what is causing this battery latch cracking issue. Canyon says they're working on it, so if you buy this bike today, I believe you will still get the old solution, but anyone having problems with it will get the new solution if the old one fails. And I talked to the Norwegian, or rather Nordic, Canyon Nordic agent, and he said after he heard about this issue, he ordered a bunch of those Bosch latches. And so far in the Nordic countries, as of October, he had sent out none. So yeah, the issue is real, but it might not be as widespread as at least I was inclined to think after reading about it. So how does our bike look then? Well, after almost 100 kilometers of riding, it looks perfect. The battery slides in and out easily, no cracks on the latch. So all good so far on our bike. The test bike in size medium, it's a fairly big bike being a size medium, with a wheelbase of 1274 millimeters. That's long for a medium. Head tube angle 63.5 degrees, seat tube angle 78 degrees, chainstay length 445 millimeters, reach is 475 millimeters. And just looking at this bike, looking at the front end, it looks quite tall. It looks chunky with the big down tube, the long fork. You can see that the 2.5-inch tire is visibly chunkier than the 2.4 at the back. So the front end, it looks burly, like a big hitter. But the rear end, it's sort of so small and so compact. This StriveON looks like two bikes just being blended into one, with a huge substantial front end and a rear end that sort of tapers off. And I think it looks interesting. It looks different. So riding the bike then. For me, at 181 centimeters, getting a slightly big size medium, it's just great. It's a perfect size for me. That's of course highly subjective, but having a bike, a frame size that suits you, that's of course always an advantage. So descending on this bike, the front end of the StriveON, it's quite tall, which isn't a surprise as the bike has been designed by Fabien Barrel. He's explained this previously at the launch of the first generation Spectral, that having a tall front end makes it easier lifting the front wheel when you are going down steep descents, makes it easier maneuvering the bike. And in combination with the 445mm chainstays, this really is a nimble and playful bike. Yet the wheelbase is so long. That means the front center of the bike is long. So there's lots of room to move about over the bike, and there's lots of stability on the descents. So how about climbing then? Having a shorter rear end isn't necessarily an advantage. Yeah, I guess if you had 10-15mm longer chainstays, you could climb while seated in steeper sections. But come on, lift your bum. This is a fun and inspiring bike. It's no problem standing up pedaling every once in a while. And even though the geometry it's not biased towards climbing, we did some seriously steep climbs and we got up all of them. Sure, we moved forward, leaned forward. And the flatter trails. Wasn't this supposed to be like a pedal-efficient racer? After reading the press release, I thought I had the bike figured out, but I was excited to see why so many people were so excited about the StriveON. And it didn't really take long to figure this bike out. It wasn't the bike I was imagining. It wasn't this all-out racer in the sense of being pedal efficient. I set up the rear suspension with the air pressure I usually start out with, my regular starting point, and it was nowhere near enough. I increased it with like 25%. Now the sag was fine, but the rear end was still surprisingly active. So it tracked everything very well, lots of grip going up, down, flat trails, and there was nice support in the mid part of the travel. So this bike was indeed pedaling well enough. The StriveON behaves a lot like most other 160mm, 150mm travel EMTBs. A lot of that is down to the low weight at sub 24.5 kilos. That's noticeably less than many other full fat, full power, big battery EMTBs. But doing sharp turns, low speed, you can't feel that this indeed is a burlier bike with a slack 63.5 degrees head angle. Having no knock block mechanism in the headset, you can turn the handlebars pretty much all the way around. And at some point you will feel the steering sort of trying to collapse on itself. So you have to hold the steering back when doing very sharp turns like U-turns. That's nothing negative. That's how it is with these long travel slack bikes. It's just a reminder that this, in fact, is a burly bike. So, to sum it up, the StriveON, it's not the hardcore racer I was expecting it to be. It's more of a nimble and fun bike. And in my mind, racing and fun are sort of opposites, but not on the StriveON. I'm sure it's a great racer. After all, it's being used for enduro racing. But my impression is the Canyon StriveON, it's such a nice blend of fun and stability. Oftentimes I was going faster than I was realizing because it was just so stable and confidence inspiring, while still being so maneuverable. More maneuverable and nimble than the 26.5 kilo EMTBs I'm used to riding. That's it. Appreciate any likes and subscribes. Thanks for watching.